want to talk about Dave and Lauren from this season of Love is Blind. Dave, I was rooting for this relationship. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so cute together. Dave is in medical sales and he hasn't had a girlfriend in a hot minute. He can't even remember the last time that he hooked up with someone, but he admitted that he is very shallow. I don't know if he still currently is, but at one point he was working for a plastic surgeon, and he said due to that he started having like unrealistic beauty standards for women. Like he thinks they have to be like completely perfect. They have to have a perfectly shaped nose, a perfectly snatched waist that is pretty unobtainable outside of having plastic surgery. So I'm like, okay, I can already tell what type of guy Dave is. He's probably one of those guys that's just like into the blow up types that look like they've had a lot of plastic surgery, that don't look exactly 100% natural. So when we saw Lauren come out and he saw Lauren for the first time, I thought, okay, he's not going to be into her. Lauren is a very beautiful woman, but she's very natural, which is the complete opposite of what I think Dave's into. I just honestly feel like Dave is into bad girls, like the party girls that go out every single weekend. And I just feel like Lauren was too much of a good girl for him. She was a former teacher, and most people would love something like that. But he seemed like he really wasn't too into that. He's like, oh, I can see the teacher in you. And she's like, okay, like what does that mean? And he ends up telling her, like, look, I'm into you, but I don't know if I can continue to do this, because she ended up admitting to him that 1 week before she came to the experiment, she ended up hooking up with this other man. And I guess they've been hooking up for a few months. But Dave doesn't know how to take it. I think because he's not used to being in relationships or hooking up with people, that he thinks if you hook up with somebody, then that's automatically going to be your husband or it's something serious. But that's just not what the case was. She was just hooking up with him for a good time, but she never really wanted it to go beyond that. She said they just weren't very compatible. So right before she left for the experiment, she decided to tell him, like, look, I'm going on this. And she said that she feels like they didn't really get proper closure. And she told Dave that. She's just trying to be open and honest with him about everything. And you think that would make them become closer as a couple, but instead it just put distance between them. Dave could not stop thinking about the fact she banged another man, and that's all he would hyper focus on. First, it seemed like they were doing great. Then he sat down and he's like, no, I can't get over the fact and marry a woman that just hooked up with another man. How are you going to tell me that you're ready for marriage? And I'm just like, how are you going to say you're ready for marriage? Because Dave has not shown one single sign that he is ready for marriage whatsoever. It was just personally hard to watch because every time she would try to become closer to him, he would just push her away. And I'm sure that really had to affect her self-esteem. Like, she's probably like, what the hell is wrong with me? Because you know it just has to be something more beyond the fact that she just hooked up with another man right before she came to the experiment. Because at the time, she was single. I just hated to watch what he was doing to her. Like, they're sitting down and she's crying, pouring her heart out to him. And then he's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. It seems like all this man's ever talking about is his sisters and friends. And it's like, damn, if they're so important to you, why don't you just marry them? But he decides to leave Lauren crying so he can go to the bar and hang out with his friends all night. Then he comes back the next morning, and if I was Lauren, I would be like, okay, at this point I don't think it's gonna work because we just do not have the same kind of problem solving skills. And you can tell that Lauren's one of those people that when she has an issue, she wants to sit down, confront it, and get past it right there, then and there. But you can tell Dave is the complete opposite. He's not used to being in a relationship. I don't think he's used to confrontation, so it makes him feel uncomfortable. And I feel like he doesn't like having to face what he's doing to Lauren. So instead, he just avoids it and runs off with his friends and puts Lauren through hell all night long while she's worrying about where he is and what he's doing and where they stand. Then he finally shows up the next day at like 2 p.m. after Lauren was worrying all day. And at this point, she's like, okay, I guess he's just done with me. And she was ready to pack her bags and go home. Well, he finally shows up and he's like, I'm sorry, I got super drunk last night. I had to leave my car behind at the bar because I was so drunk. And he said, but I was thinking about you all night long and I couldn't wait to come back home to you. And she's like, yeah, but you were thinking about me all night long, but you didn't even reach out to me or try to show that you were thinking about me. And this man is just always full of excuses. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, my phone died. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I don't want to care about what my friends and family say, because he keeps claiming the reason why he can't get past this is because his friends and family are continuously bringing it up and they can't get past it. And he will not let Lauren meet his family. And Lauren was like, look, let me sit down with your family so I can explain to your family what the situation really was. That yes, I hooked up with this guy a week before the experiment, but it was nothing serious. It was just straight fun and I wasn't tied down at the time. And I know if the family sat down and met Lauren, that they would love her. And I think that's what Dave is worried about. This is when I could really start to tell that Dave just was not into Lauren, because if you were, then you would be trying to defend Lauren and make her sound as good as possible to your family to try to win them over. But instead, I feel like he was trying to make her sound as bad as he could. And I feel like he was over-exaggerating things, because he kept over-exaggerating things when he was explaining it to Lauren, who knows more than anyone that what he's saying was just exaggerated. He was like, oh, you banged this guy one day before coming to the experiment. And she's like, I said it was a week, not a day. And he kept trying to make it sound like, oh, you guys were boyfriend and girlfriend months before the experiment. And she's like, no, I said we hooked up a few times. We weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. So I can tell if he's explaining it to Lauren like this, then that's probably how he was explaining it to his family and friends. And Lauren, if he really cares about her, he should give her an opportunity to speak her piece, and he should want them to want to come together. So then he comes and shows up the next morning and he's like, yeah, I'm so sorry. I wanted to reach out to you and I want to try to work things out. I realized I care more about you than what my family and friends think. And Lauren was like, oh my God, thank God. And she was so happy, and I thought they were about to live happily ever after, but that was short-lived. Just when Lauren was starting to feel safe and secure, he ripped that all away from her. They sit down later, and after it seemed like they were on good terms again and they were moving past things, he sat down and showed her that he really hasn't moved past nothing. She's sitting there talking about their future, and he's like, yeah, so I still can't get over this guy that you hooked up with. And she's like, what do you want me to do? What can I do for you to work past this? She's trying to do anything she can, and he cannot even tell her what they can do. At this point, Dave, you just need to be honest with this girl and just tell this girl that you're not into her, instead of continuously blaming it on your friends and family. Like, yeah, I know your friends were like, oh, there's a girl going into the pods that was just banging a dude before she came in. But he's not even trying to ride hard for Lauren. And if a person can be that easily swayed out of a relationship based off their family or friends, then I just don't think they're ready for a relationship to begin with. And I'm very genuinely confused why Dave even chose to get on the show to begin with, because it seems like he's not ready for a relationship. He's not ready to sit down and problem solve to work past what needs to be done to have a long lasting relationship. And I think he just needs to be single for now until he can learn to find himself, because nobody deserves to go through what he put Lauren through. So after he leads Lauren on that things are okay, he tells her, oh no, I can't get past this. And she's like, okay, so are we not going to get married? And he's like, I don't think so. Then she's like, okay, so we're done. They pretty much say their goodbyes. They think this is the end of their relationship for good. Then that night, Love is Blind producers decide to get all the cast members together at the bar so they could just sit down and talk. And they're all sitting there talking about what they've been up to since the show. Dave and Lauren weren't there, so it's like, okay, maybe they're done with the show for good, since it looks like they're no longer going to be together. Then, next thing you know, we see Lauren walk in, and then shortly after, Dave walks in. And they're pretty much avoiding each other all night. You could tell they didn't really want to interact. And Lauren was just like, look, I gave it my all. I'm not going to give another minute of my time, because she really did give it her all. She was trying everything she could to problem solve, to communicate with Dave. And that's the thing. She was a very good communicator. She had a really good way of expressing herself and calling Dave out on what she needed to say and making him be held accountable for what he was doing. But you can tell that he's just too emotionally immature to be at a place to be ready for all that. So they're sitting there at the bar, they're all hanging out, and then Molly was there, and Molly was one of Dave's options. He was considering choosing Molly while he was in the pods, but he decided to go with Lauren instead. And Molly was like, hey, can we sit down and talk? And he's like, okay. So they're sitting there and talking, and I thought maybe just from the appearance of on the previews that they were going to sit down and she was going to start flirting with him. That's how they made it look like in the commercials. But instead, she actually sat down with Dave and she was writing hard for Lauren. She said, look, I don't know why you did that to Lauren, but Lauren did not deserve that. And he said steady was going on about the fact she banged another guy before. And she's like, yeah, but you could have done the same thing too, and it wouldn't have been a big deal because you guys were both single at the time. No matter what argument Molly had to challenge Dave with, he just kept having excuse after excuse on why he couldn't be with Lauren. Like, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if he blamed his reason on being with Lauren is because the sky is blue. Because it just felt like this dude was reaching for anything to blame anybody but himself on why he was no longer with her. So Molly was like, you know what, dude? You fumbled the ball big time because Lauren was one of the best options on this show. Your family would have loved her if they would have met her, and you know that. And Molly realized she couldn't get through to Dave, so she just threw her hands up and she's like, all right, dude, you're lost. And I think you're going to really come to regret your decision. Then after Molly spoke some sense into Dave, I think he was starting to realize, you know what? Maybe I did mess up. But I genuinely thought that maybe he was starting to feel like that. But after I saw how he acted next, I feel like he was just putting on for the cameras. He goes to Lauren and it's like, hey, can I take you to the side and talk to you? And she's like, okay. So he takes her to the side and he's like, yeah, I realize that I overreacted. I don't care about what my family and friends say. I just care about you. As soon as he said this, I was like, oh my God, I hope Lauren don't fall for this, because it's just a constant up and down. It's like he builds her up just to knock her back down. Luckily, Lauren was smart enough not to fall for it because she's just been through it so many times before. And I feel like at that time when they sat down last at their apartment together and he went back to square one and was like, I don't really care how you feel, I care more about my friends and family. I think that was a wake-up call for Lauren, and she finally realized that Dave just is not ready for a marriage, let alone a relationship. And so luckily she did not fall for it, and I just felt like that was a very disingenuous attempt to get Lauren, not get Lauren back, but I feel like he was trying to make it look like he was trying to get Lauren back and like he cared. But at the end of the day, I feel like he didn't want Lauren back. He didn't mean anything he was saying. I just felt like he realized he looked like an a-hole after Molly called him out. So he's like, damn, there's probably going to be other people who watch this that feel the same way. So if I don't try to at least look like I'm trying to get Lauren back, then I just look like that I don't care and that I am just using the girl. Plus, did you guys hear how wasted he was when he was talking to Lauren at the bar? It always seems like every time he's all wasted, he wants to go back on good terms. If I was Lauren, I would have been like, hit me back up when you're sober. But at that point, even then, it would have been pointless because you know this man is just going to go back to square one again. And I just feel like Dave just needs to be honest with her. I feel like Lauren does not deserve any of this. He's literally picking his friends over his fiance, and he's blaming everyone but himself. Then Molly sat Lauren down and was like, hey girl, I saw Dave at the bar the other day when he disappeared all night and got super drunk. And apparently a girl was hanging all over him at the bar, which tells me even more that he's not ready for a relationship. Here he is knocking Lauren for being with a guy a week before the show, but here he is hanging out with this girl and having this girl all over him while he's in a relationship with Lauren and filming on this show that he's supposed to be getting married for. Dave has been doing podcasts since being on the show, and people have been filling the comments up saying things like, did your sister approve of this interview? Like, he just needs to get with his sister since he cares so much about what she thinks. But I honestly feel like at the end of the day, they aren't pressing him as much as he's saying, and I'm very curious what their reactions are now that they see him on the show continuously blaming him for all his faults. Dave ended up posting this picture on his Instagram after the last episode, and he said, I'm far from perfect and I'm not here for sympathy. This experiment was very difficult and I've learned a lot this past year. The way I handled things wasn't fair to anyone, especially Lauren. Okay, if only you would have realized though when it mattered. And then he said, I've grown, been humbled, and will continue to work on being the best person I can be. Please direct all hate towards me and leave my family out of it. To those that know me and have reached out being very supportive, I appreciate it more than you know. I'll be back. Then someone said, you and your sis married yet? Someone else said, honestly, Lauren dodged a bullet. And people in the comments saying, oh, now you want us to leave your family out of it when you've been talking about your family, your sister, every other word all season long. But like I said, I feel like the family probably saw this show and were like, damn, why are you blaming everything on us and not taking any accountability? But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think about Dave and Lauren in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.